Bună ziua! Bine ați venit la cea de-a 5-a ediție sau al 5-lea an de viață a festivalului RoWine, de International Wine Festival of Romania, și nu puteam începe mai bine decât cu un masterclass, cu un invitat din afara României, mai special din Londra, Robert Joseph, și o să trec în limba engleză cu permisiunea dumneavoastră. A wine expert with a huge reputation internationally.
Merci.
One of the top 50 voices by Decanter magazine. A consultant, not only an expert, which I very much appreciate about Robert is that expertise in wines, very, very good critic, but also a very great knowledge and background in terms of business, in terms of consultancy. He's also a producer, and one of his wines, or the wine that he's producing as well, you will taste today, along with other two wines, one from Italy and one from Romania. I'm not going to spend more time here. I want to let Robert to give you a great experience. Thank you very much, Robert, for being here. I understand that we could say that it's almost for the first time for you in Romania, because you've been more or less 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So thank you again. For those which are not able to be here today, are on Facebook, few of them, and for the rest, the registration will be available on YouTube and also on RoWine, the International Wine Festival of Romania Facebook page. Thank you so much.
Merci. So, firstly, I would like to apologize for not speaking in Romanian. And if I do speak too quickly in English, which is a risk, I hope you can see the video afterwards and pick up on any of them. So, as Marinella explained, I have three hats. Wine producing, journalism, and consultancy. So the journalism is a magazine published in Germany, but in English, called Meiningers Wine Business International. I'm also involved with Mundus Vini. I started the International Wine Challenge in the UK a long time ago, 1984. And then when that was sold, I then moved to help Mundus Vini in Germany, which is a different kind of competition. And I do consultancy, which I'll mention in a moment, and wine. And these are some of the clients that I've worked with. What amuses me about this is that in Georgia, I'm working on a project which involves Kvevery, but when I was working with Accolade Wines, I was working in bag-in-box. And that to me is maybe the biggest range of wine thinking that one could maybe imagine. So, and these are my wines, and you will see one of these, but not one that is in the picture. And I will explain that in a minute, for good reason. But nearly 4 million bottles. Last year we were a little flat. I was hoping to get to 4 million last year. This year I hope will be 3.9. But in many countries, America was our number one. Russia has done very well for us, but we're doing well in a number of countries. And what is a little unusual is that we are in some very smart restaurants, but we're also in supermarkets in some places. Which is, so number one in Russia, number one in Estonia. The sheep that you can see there is our logo. And number one in India. India is not a very big market. So being number one is nice, but it doesn't mean as much as it sounds. So that makes me a genius. No. Now I am going to talk about a genius. Against this man, I am an ant. So, do you know this label? Some may, some may not. It's called The Prisoner. It's a picture by Goya, the Spanish artist, and it was launched in 1908 by this young man who was not trained in wine. He had not been to Davis or whatever in California. He bought grapes. He borrowed a winery or paid to make the wine there and made 385 cases of a blend of Zinfandel, which was not too expensive, Charbonneau, which is even cheaper, some Petit Syrah, so a mixture of grapes. He was very good at blending those grapes, and he managed to get some good points. He managed to sell the wine to some restaurants, and it's a California blend. But at that time it was not from Napa, it's just from California. $49 is quite a lot of money in America for a blend. In 2010, he didn't have any vines, he didn't have a winery. He sold the brand for $40 million. $40 million. At that time, the Californians who bought that business, the Hernandez family, who originally come from Chile, could have bought maybe, well, it depends on the price, but let's say 12 Bordeaux Chateau. Not top Chateau, but they sold it again for $285 million. A wine brand. I think they had it for 5 years. So, no winery, no vineyards. Why? What sense does that make? Well, this is not all of the wines, some of the wines that they now sell. The Prisoner Napa Valley Blend, $49. Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Valley, $55. Déranger Red Blend, doesn't say what the grapes are, $100. Rosé California, doesn't say where in California, $30. Cheap. The Prisoner Pinot Noir Sonoma, $45. White Blend, $32. Pinot Noir, $50, and so on and so on. That is this one word to describe all of that. And it's a word we do not use enough in the wine industry. And do you know what that word is? Profit. Constellation is a company that has shareholders. They cannot spend $285 million just like that. This was a justifiable purchase in the same way as buying a whiskey brand or a beer brand. The man, Dave Finney, he only got, I'm very sorry for Dave, because Dave only got the 40 million. So, bad news. Except that Dave actually has another brand called Orange Swift, which he sold to Gallo. Gallo is a family company, so we don't know how much was paid, but probably 100 at least. Because, let's look at this. Burnt Sacrifice, 30. Papillon, 75. Galladora, 30. The Rosé sold out. Triggerfinger sold out. Palermo, 55. More profit. And these are big brands. If you go into a store in New York or in Denver, you will see these ones. Then he has another wine for Gallo. Locations. So, everybody can understand what these wines are. The left one, yes, it is Spanish. Where in Spain? What in Spain? It is just Spanish. The middle one is French. The one on the right is Italian, and there's one for Oregon, and there's I think even one for Texas. And they are $39. Can you tell me what the word is for those? Profit. And now he has another one. This is called 8 Years in the Desert. This is one of the labels. 39 euros is the price I saw here. And this is interesting because they sell this in a box of the 8 different labels. Not 9. Normally we might have 12 or 6 bottles. There's 8 here. The 8 different labels because it is 8 years in the desert in the brand. So this is another brand that is actually his own and doesn't belong to Gallo, I think. So I think he has made $100 million minimum in the last 20 years out of wine. So this is what I'm talking about, and here the wines are blend, again, Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, Syrah. And it's actually, this is a Napa Valley blend, but Napa Valley is quite big. It's not a single vineyard, and it is $39 euros. And it gets good scores. And this is a picture I took in a New York store. On the left, Cabernet Sauvignon, these are classics from California, you may know. On the right are the Dave Finney wines. Look at the prices. You can't see that one, it's behind the speakers. $70, $80, $100, $90, $100, $70, and that's $50. The world is changing. Then you will be told by many people that you must have an appellation, you must have a single vineyard, you must have an indigenous grape, you must do everything the way it was done 100 years ago. That is true for some people. It is not the only truth. And this was from 2016. It's slowed down since then, to be fair. But look, top grape, Cabernet Sauvignon, second grape, Chardonnay, third grape is red blends. That means a combination of grapes without telling you what the blend is. And what's very nice about these wines is that they are scalable. You make this much, and if people want more, you can make this much. And if they want more, you can make that much. Which, if we take the traditional model of wine, we have one vineyard, and we can only make this much. So in business, this is quite appealing. So interestingly, this is two companies, both from Spain and from Italy, from Portugal, that are following the same idea of blended wines from different regions. An alternative, if you want to charge more for your wine, is to use a celebrity. On the left, Snoop Dogg. This is a wine called 19 Crimes that you may or may not know about. If you don't know about it, please read about it, look on Google, you will be fascinated. But they paid Snoop Dogg to put his face on the label, and they sold 1 year's stock in 2 months. How? How's that possible? Can anyone tell me how it's possible? Snoop has 50 million, I can't remember, Instagram followers. All he has to do is go, tuk, 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 tuk. It takes him, I think, 10 seconds to tell millions of people. That is the new world. We didn't have that world 10, 20 years ago. And on the right, that's Kylie Minogue, a friend of mine, did her wine this year. 1 year, 1 million bottles. Kylie Minogue rosé. So, I have taken 16 years to get to 3.8 million. She has got, in 1 year, to 1 million at a higher price. She's cleverer than me. She's also better looking than me. So, now we have another alternative way to make money out of wine. We have one French person, at least in the audience, who will know piquette. Does everybody know what the word piquette is? It's a word in French for bad wine. A wine that is piqué, as like vinegar. It also means what the peasants used to do with the skins of the grapes. When you have made the wine, you added a little sugar and some water, and you made a low alcohol drink. It was not wine that you would give to the workers who could not afford wine. It was refreshing, it was light, it was cheap, and probably not very good and didn't keep very long. Today, Good Food Magazine in Australia, Eater Magazine in the US, and Jancis Robinson are all talking about piquette as being the drink of the summer. So it is now, it would cost you $20 to buy, here we are, 19 euros price. Stuff you were going to throw away, all you have to do is add some sugar and put it back in the vat, and you've made a new wine. So what I'm talking about is trying to get you to think of wine in a different way. You may not want to do these things, but you should know that this exists. So, this is an impossible picture. You've all seen it, Escher. And that is the same concept, yes? And there's another picture. That's a real photograph. How can we have a real photograph of the impossible thing? It's not tricked, it's real. Well, it is tricked, because if we go around the back, that's what it looks like. So my point is that what you see depends on where you stand. This is apparently Italy's favorite virgin olive oil, okay? It's not Italian. It's European. At the moment, Spain's biggest export of its pink wine in bulk is to France. Why? Because French people are drinking Spanish, or a blend of Spanish and French wine out of bag-in-box. Rosé is cheap, it tastes nice, while the French export their rosé to the rest of the world at a high price. Nobody talks about this very much. So, this is a little game. I want you to guess the two prices of these wines. This is what you see on a shelf. Can you guess? Which is the most expensive, the left or the right? Who says the left? Who says the right? Okay, well, actually, the people on the right, you're correct. Did you know the wine already?
No, I saw Toscana.
Toscana helps. So the price. 5, 10, 20, 50? 20 on the right, and maybe less on the left? 40. 40? Okay. So that's in pounds. The one on the left is like €5 or less. The one on the right is $523. They are both in the same shaped bottle with a label you don't understand. You don't understand, nobody understands. This is, my wine is from the Minervois region. I sell my wine as an IGP or a Vin de France, so there's no appellation. We sell it in Monoprix for $4.90, and the same region's wine is selling in Carrefour for $3.99. Now that's quite interesting because on the left, the Minervois, you are limited in the grapes you can plant, you are limited in the yields, and you are limited in irrigation. I don't have any of those limits, and I get €1 more. And that's my wine, which is interesting because all of those wines in Monoprix are Vin de France. All of those wines up to €19 do not have a region. So when anybody tells you you have to have a region or an appellation, think about it carefully. I think having a region can be very, very valuable in your home market. So in California, there is a new appellation called the Petaluma Gap. Nobody outside California has heard of it. Probably nobody in New York has heard of it. If you're in San Francisco, you know Petaluma. It has an added value to the producers there. Maybe a sommelier in New York could say to somebody, oh, I've got this new wine from Petaluma Gap. But in London, Berlin, Tokyo, not so sure. So when anybody says you have to have an appellation, think about what the resonance of that might be. Here's another, €51 for a Vin de France, and the biggest selling French wine in America, La Vieille Ferme, which is made by the Perrin family, which originally had an appellation, is now a Vin de France. And I was just talking about Spain, Campo Viejo, the most famous Rioja. In America, half of it is not. And then 31 million bottles of I Heart wine, of which some is Romanian. But when I buy the I Heart Pinot Grigio, I don't know it comes from Romania. And anyway, next time I taste it, it might come from Moldova or Hungary or somewhere else. What I am buying is Pinot Grigio. 31 million bottles. Now this is maybe, I think, something quite important. I hope it's important what I'm saying. Wine is bipolar. What does that mean? We have two kinds of wine. We have what the peasants drank and what the princes drank. The peasants drank like the piquette, the cheap, the ordinary wine, and the princes drank the wonderful wine. And most people, and I used to be a wine critic, imagine that all wine is this. All wine is about the region, about the history, about the family, and so on. In 1930, the French drank 172 litres per person, half a litre each, every day. And some people were probably sick and didn't, so some people had to drink 4 litres to make up for the ones who didn't drink anything. Were they thinking about where the wine came from? No, it came from Algeria mostly. So everything changed in the 20th century. What changed? No more peasants and princes, or a mixture, and the supermarket. Suddenly, that changed everything. Because suddenly wine is bought with everything else, and we have to think about discounts, we have to think about labels, and we have critics. So now all of these, which were not talked about before wine went into those shops, marketing, packaging, value for money, luxury wine, medals, sports, all new from the middle of the 20th century, more or less the later part of the 20th century. But it's still bipolar. That is still, if you like, the peasant wine. It's the functional wine. It's the wine that we drink as a beverage, as a lubrication, to make life go easier, with a barbecue or whatever. And we have this, which was $47,000 for one bottle of Musigny Burgundy. But let's go back to what I was saying about appellations. €3.85 for Bordeaux, not just Bordeaux, Bordeaux Supérieur. So ordinary Bordeaux must be cheaper than €3.85. And here on the right we have not Petrus. We have a Chinese copy of Petrus, but it's probably more than €3.85. For me, I think when people buy anything, it doesn't matter whether it's a car, clothes, or anything, I think we divide it into these three areas. On the left is, and people have written a lot of books about this, which you probably know about. On the left is thinking about it. On the right is emotion, the heart. And then the middle is a complicated one, which is kind of without thinking too much. It's a mixture, if you like, of a little bit of rational and a little bit of heart. So rational. I'm going to pay more because the wine is better. Great. Who says it's better? Is it one critic? Well, we've had an argument between Robert Parker and Jancis Robinson on the same wine. What do I do? Do I like Jancis or do I like Robert? Complicated. Yes. So, yeah, but she likes Parker, so we already have a problem. I have a wine, my wines go into one competition, I get a gold medal, I into another competition, I don't get a gold medal, which is correct. It's not easy. And my friend tells me he likes this or she likes this, or my sommelier in the restaurant tells me they like this or they like that. Do they know my taste? And this is my wine on Vivino. So apparently 3.9 on Vivino is 90 points. So all I know is I have 40,000, I think, or 4,000 on one, 5,000. What do? Do I use the medal? Or do I use Vivino when I'm talking about my wine? That's a new thing. When you're a restaurant, what do you say to people? Please recommend us on TripAdvisor. We didn't used to think about that. We had the Michelin Guide. We didn't have TripAdvisor. So, and this is why I say, if I don't know if I'm going to like something that is better. I had a client in Champagne. He said, do you like zero dosage champagne? And I said, it's not my favorite style. He said, oh, we make some. Okay. He said, we don't make very much. Okay. He said, we don't really sell it very easily. Okay. And we lose money on every bottle. Okay. And he said, it's the cleverest thing we do. Okay. He said, we show it to the sommeliers and the wine writers. They love it. And then they write about us, and we then sell the Blanc de Blanc and everything else to the people who like it. So, if you read in the press about champagne, you will see the American and the British critics always talking about zero dosage champagne. They never talk about ice, the sweet champagne. If you go through Frankfurt Airport or New York or anywhere else, what do you see in duty free? Do you see the zero dosage? Or do you see Moet and Chandon ice? So, now I'm talking about the gut, the complicated one, the middle one. Here, I sort of see the name, like Champagne or Bordeaux or Amarone, and I associate that name with quality. This is the reason why appellations are important. Because the appellation is the word that people will see, that they will recognize. But the trouble is, we have 800 appellations in France and Italy. We have new ones in California, Petaluma Gap and so on, and we have ones in Romania and Moldova and Hungary and Bulgaria and Chile and Uruguay and everywhere else. Who is going to know all of these? Now this is interesting, done by Wine Intelligence. This is a trend. They asked people, they took the 5 most important wine regions in each country, and they asked regular wine drinkers, not wine enthusiasts, but people who know less today than they did before. And then we go 72, everything is going down, China going down a long way, and that's not good news if you believe in appellations. And by the way, these are the top 5, so if you're not in the top 5, it's worse. This is another study. Country was 52%, region 44%, and they didn't really understand what an appellation was. So that's in America. So country is like half the people. Now we look at Australia, 62% country, style 58%, region 21%. So what we think they are interested in is not necessarily what they are interested in. But even if we talk about regions, this is one of my favorite slides that I made. You know this game, I think. I'm sure in Romania you have different place places, different streets or places, but the principle is the same. If you have the two blue ones, you get no rent. To me, these two are the top appellations in the world. Napa, Margaux, Vosne Romanée, Champagne maybe. This brown one, or the light blue one, that's Minervois. That's where I make wine. And I hate to say that to you in Romania, but that is probably regions in Eastern Europe. These are not areas where the area gives you a right to ask for more money. Tokai, maybe Tokai is there, but it's not at the top, and it should be. So another quiz. Prices, they are both Chateauneuf du Pape. It's the same word. What are we doing to the consumer? What are we saying to him or her? Should I pay $12 or should I pay $300? What is the right price? And maybe this one will get a medal of some kind, somewhere. The thing about branding of any product to me is that you have a higher price, which gives you or should give you a higher margin, which gives you some money to market your wine, which enables you to build the brand, which justifies the higher price. It's a very simple little diagram. The problem in wine is we have this. We have the private label. We go back. This wine is from Lidl. So what we have here is a low price, a low margin, no marketing budget. It means the brand is weak. Well, not the brand Chateauneuf, but yes, actually the brand Minervois is weak, is made weaker. So Dave Finney has a brand. He can invest in selling the $50 wine or the $100 wine. If I sell my Chateauneuf du Pape to Lidl, I have no money. I have just the income from... I rely on a brand. The trouble is, which brands work? What is a good, strong brand? I think the strongest brands are not brands that are better by means that we think of as being factual, analytical. Even a brand that has 100 points from Robert Clarkin. That is not why we like the brand. I was talking to somebody who worked for the Burberry brand. We did an interview 2 days ago. Nobody buys a Burberry coat or a scarf because a critic has given it 100 points. What are all these people doing? They're queuing for the new Apple iPhone. Is the Apple iPhone the best phone? Really? They just want the iPhone. So Apple is a brand that is loved. And what does Apple do about making itself loved? The packaging. When you buy an Apple phone, it comes in a beautiful box. Like flowers, like chocolates. Chocolates can come in a bag, but actually it's very nice to have them in a box. We in the wine industry are actually moving away from packaging. We are saying we want light bottles. We want everything to be simple and light. What has to matter is the liquid. But is that true for the consumer? To me, the critic is the person who is saying this. The critic, I was the critic, drinks or tastes 30 wines, 50 wines, maybe 100 wines every day. He, she hates heavy bottles. But most people buy 1 or 2 bottles a week. They don't often have that experience. They may buy 1 heavy bottle every 6 months. So it's a different thing for them. It's very dangerous for us to imagine that they're going to think the way we think. So this is the wine we're going to taste quite shortly, and that is the bottle it was in, and that's the bottle it is in now. The wine quality did not change from one vintage to the other, if I'm honest. The sales, what does that tell us? It tells us that the people are not buying the liquid, they're buying more than the liquid. That's our new entry level, which looks cheaper and is supposed to be cheaper, so $8, $10, $12. And that is not the rosé, that is our top level of $17. And again, we want people to think they're getting something more for their money. L'Oreal spends 7.5 billion euros on advertising on their cosmetics. This is a great story. One cosmetics company had something that was not selling. They took it off the market, they put it back on the market in a new package at a much higher price. It sells very well. Sometimes we sell things too cheaply. some wines people actually want to pay money for. So marketing budget in most things, gin, champagne, trainers, 20-25%. Reasonable? In wine, how are we going to make brands with less than 7%? One of our problems is the way we price our products. Because here's one way I hear people tell me. So if my wine costs me 5 to make, so I can sell it for 6. Except that this year I made half as much. Oh, that doesn't work very well. Then we have another one. I charge what my competitors charge, and that's the problem in appellations. The Swedish monopoly has a price that it will pay for Chateau Pap or Chablis or whatever. The trouble is my neighbor is bigger, or he pays his staff less, or he has more yields, so I'm competing with him. So another problem. To me, what I learned from the luxury world is I charge what I think my customers will be happy to pay. So my wine is more expensive than the Minute world because I have found people who are happy to pay more than for the Minute world. So who are you making the wine for? You? That's a hobby. The sommelier? The critic? That's Eric Asimov from the New York Times. The Instagrammer? Or these people, the wine drinkers? And the next question is, who is going to pay for your wine? To me, it's not normally these guys. It's these guys. So this is Stephanie Gallo from Gallo, one of the biggest wine producers in the world. 90 brands. Every year they launch a minimum of 10 to 20 new brands. When I say launch, they will test them. They will launch them, and then a lot of them will die. Maybe all 10 will die, but 1 or 2 will come up and will succeed. And this is a very important thing, she says. For every wine they produce, they are knowing who it is for. And if I go around the other hall today and I talk to the people who are producing wine, if I say to them, who are you making your wine for? They will tell me, I make wine for people who like wine. Well, not everybody likes the same kind of wine, and not everybody will pay the same price. We have a problem at the moment, which is that young people are drinking less wine. They are moving away from wine. Here on the left, £450 for Carbon champagne. Do you know Carbon champagne? Is it a Grand Cru champagne? No. Is it a beautifully packaged champagne? Yes. Is it on sale in Harrods? Yes. Are people buying it? Yes. And what is its main point of success? It is associated with Formula One, but it isn't even the champagne of Formula One. So this is a Romanian wine. Again, this is Tony Rechas making wines for a totally new audience compared to what they had in the past. Orange wines and natural wines. And this is something that I've just been involved in. One of my favorite chateaus is a consultancy client. We did some work on trying to find out who would buy this wine. White Bordeaux is not the easy sell. We found in America and the UK that actually there were young women who earn a good salary who would pay $40 for White Bordeaux. They were interested, they were looking for something that was not Chardonnay, that was different, not too alcoholic. So we did a campaign where we produced a book, printed and an ebook with recipes, stories of the family, and we had 15,000 downloads of the ebook. To me, this is where it's a different way of looking at life. Wine. And this is a wine on the left for people who like Donald Trump. It's called We the People, and it's the Republican Party. And on the right is a wine for people who don't like Trump quite so much. Now, the tasting, please. So this is my wine that you saw a moment ago in its new bottle, the 2020 vintage. And the point about this is not a vin de terroir. Okay, Roxanne, can I have a glass as well in a second? It's a vin de terroir. What does that mean? In the region we have 6,000 hectares we're working on. The lowest is 50 meters above the sea. The highest is 300. So each wine is a blend from probably 4, 5, 6 different vineyards. This means that we're trying to make the wine taste the same every year. It's a Grenache Syrah. As I said, from these different regions, the alcohol is where I want it to be, 12.5, goes up to 12.7 sometimes. There is nothing remarkable in the winemaking. I think the skill is actually in the blending. To me, the finish of any wine, even a $12 inexpensive or lower price wine, I need that wine to last. I want the wine to be clean and fresh and to make me want another glass. The wine enthusiast just gave it 89 and made it a best buy. This to me is a very nice 87, 88 point wine. I'd be unhappy with 85 points, but I would accept it. But it's in that range. So now we're going to Romania. It's an interesting blend. It raises questions because it has an international grapes and local grapes. But to me, I like the fact that this is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Fiasca. So what do I get? When I smell this, some richness, some nice oak. So to me, what I'm getting on the nose, there is that Cabernet dark blackcurrant fruit, but also some richness from the plum. What I like here is that combination of bright fruit. The oak is nicely integrated into the wine. The alcohol is as high as I would like it to be. But what is interesting, what I like about it, it has different flavors. It's not just one flavor. Would I be 97? No. Would I be 89, 90, 91, 91, 92? I'm happy in that area. Certainly 90 for me in a range of wines, because I can get that complexity and the balance I like. The alcohol is the one thing that brings it down a little bit for me. Is this an international wine? Yes, I think it is, but I don't want more alcohol than that in an international market. But actually, when we look at this, 2012 wasn't an easy vintage in Veneto either. So the wine, the grapes ripened okay, but really at the end of the season. So only the best producers. Marzi is one of my favorite producers. By the way, all these wines are from Fine. No, not yet my wine, but the other two wines are available from Fine. But to me, this is the style of wine that always stands apart. Here the alcohol is totally inside the wine. You know that this is made from the dried grapes. Actually, when you smell it, it isn't shouting as loudly as the Divino. But there is some really lovely, deep, dried fruit, tobacco, spices, and you can smell this for quite a long time before you really want to taste it. To me, what is wonderful about this wine is the 16% alcohol is absolutely inside the wine. You really don't taste it as being alcoholic. And it's wrapped in a richness that I really love. It is now 9 years old, so that is helping. The other wine is 5 years younger. But I love that long flavor that lasts and lasts. To me, it's like chocolate with liqueur in it. It's like very dark fruit. It's like prunes. To me, I love this. What the Italians say, this is, well, they say this about Recchiotto more than Amarone, but vino di meditazione. And it's the wine you sit down and you think and you talk and you put the world to right. Yes, you have it with food. Yes, you have it with a good risotto made with that. But actually, to me, this is a wine I drink without food very happily. Barolo, I normally want food. So that's the difference. So I'm a little bit too late, but that's me. And so know who you want to sell to. Give them reasons to love what you are doing. What we want is loyalty. We want to sell the second bottle or the third bottle, not the first bottle, as well as first bottle. But create and build relationships with your customers. But the last thing, and this is so important, if I can give you one lesson, it is transcend your category. Do not be a Bordeaux or a Romanian wine or a Chianti or a Rosé. You have to be more than that, always. Thank you very much.